Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life Zone podcast, where we talk about the parallels of sports and life. I am your co-host, Eric Pannell.
I am Xavier Lanier.
And today we have a special guest. We have Ethan Nkana, and he's going to share a little bit of background of his sports agency for physicians. So, Ethan, we're honored to have you here, and love to hear about what you got going on, man. How's everything?
Yeah, Eric and Xavier, I am just delighted to be here with you guys this morning. So first and foremost, thanks for having me. You hit it right on the head, Eric. My work is as an agent for doctors, the same way that an professional athlete has an agent. So any professional sport, hockey, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, all of those athletes have agents who negotiate their deals for them for max value. That's what I do for doctors.
Awesome. Mission wise, like where did take us to the origin of that? How did it all come about? I'm sure there's some challenges from the very beginning. Like, what was the origin and the thought process from the idea to where you are now?
Yeah, what I appreciate about opportunities to have conversations like this, Eric, is that you really get to talk about, like, how did you really get to where you are, as opposed to, these articles we read about people who are successful. It's like, oh, they just manifested that. And that's not how it happens, right? It's this really long, difficult process. I was just talking to a buddy the other day about it. My story is probably similar to a lot of others in the respect that, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up. And my mom, who's a physician, who I have a ton of admiration for, she told me, Ethan, get into medicine. You're always going to have a job. There's always going to be healthcare in hospitals. Unfortunately, I don't have the aptitude that she does for the sciences. And so I began my career on the administrative side of healthcare, so the business side of hospitals. And my ultimate goal was to be a hospital CEO. And to do that, I thought, I need to, and, I'll just keep it funky. Like, as a brother, I thought, I've got to be twice as good just to get in the room. So, I went to law school, and while I was in law school, I did my MBA. And the reason for that was, I wanted to be a CEO. And I figured if I'm going to be a CEO, I'm going to have to, make sure I have my credentials. And so went to law school, went to business school, continued my career in hospitals, which is what I did, like I mentioned, since I graduated college. And then I got let go from a job 2 years ago, or actually almost 3 years ago now. And it was a shock, Eric. Frankly, it was unexpected. It was an organization I had been with in leadership for 6 years. And so it kind of made me realize in that moment that this is not the safe route that I've created up in my mind, built up in my mind to be. If I can lose my job, and not even over performance, my department was closed. So it was just a change in the business's decision. And so if I can lose my job over that, then I might as well bet on myself and do something that I'm deeply passionate about. And so, we're just, my girlfriend is a really good, she's a really good celebrator of traditions, and she really likes meaningful dates. And actually, just on Monday, she said, we need to celebrate the date that you got let go from your last job.
Awesome.
And I said, well, that's miserable. Like, I don't want to remember that. She said, but that was the catalyst to you having the idea for Rocky Mountain Physician Agency. And so, when I got laid off, it was within, a week, Eric, that I had this idea. I started to think, man, why don't doctors have agents like athletes? They both spend 20 to 25 years perfecting their craft, becoming elite. They both go into training, and then when they come out, they make a bunch of money, and they're not trained in how to negotiate for their value. And so I called my mom, and I was like, hey, who helped you negotiate your deals? How did you know how much money you should be paid? And she said, I had to do it myself. And so immediately, Eric, that turned into this just brain dump of like, okay, here's how an agent would work for doctors. Here's why doctors need agents, and all of the reasons why it won't work, right? Like, I'm a huge believer in, like, be critical of your own ideas. Like, here's the reasons that this won't work. And I listed all those and had rebuttals for them, or at least counter arguments. And now, it's funny to say I'm, 3 years down the road, and I didn't see this coming, but I've never been happier with my career and where I am in life.
That's awesome, man. But the
Hey, so you speak on the idea, like so the day that you got let go wasn't a very good day, but you didn't want to celebrate it. But in actuality, right, like the girlfriend said, that was the catapult to you becoming what you essentially want to be, and that's the CEO of the company. So it's great to have that support behind you to keep you positive and go head in the right direction. So are you in Denver, Colorado right now? Is that still home for you or no?
Yeah, I am, and I am based in Denver, and Xavier is important. When I often talk about the business, and I tell my girlfriend, eventually I'm going to write a book about the journey and the business and, being a billionaire and all of those things. And she says, when you write that book, I'm going to write a companion book about the real story. how you didn't believe in yourself, how there were days where I would call her in the middle of the day and say, babe, I can't take another rejection today. Like, I just don't have it in me. Yeah. And if we want to keep it funky, man, I was down to my last $1,300 in December. Like, it wasn't as though this is, back when I was struggling. This is recent memory for me. And so, I'm just now kind of getting into what I see as cruising altitude with the business, but it's been a really, really long journey. And I really want to point out to Xavier's point, like it's a really deep, challenging experience, and not everybody's cut out for it. Mm-hmm. And there's businesses that, even since I've started 2 years ago, there's businesses that I've seen start and end in the time that I've been open. And so it's really hard, and it takes a lot of grit. But I'm just really fortunate I've got a good partner to help support me through that. I'm glad you brought that up, Xavier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the whole startup maturation process, right? So take us to the very beginning when you were talking to doctors, kind of feeling this, let's be honest, we think of things like this and these crazy ideas, right? Take us through that process when you were kind of talking to doctors about the idea of what your company could potentially do to help them. And then on the other side of that, when you're working with the medical facilities, like what kind of rejection challenges did you face in the early stages?
Oh man, I ate rejection for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had a steady diet, Eric, a steady diet of rejection. So with doctors, it really, I see all of this as practice. Whatever job you're in, whatever career, it's all practice, right? We're all trying to get better, perfect our craft. And so when I first started calling doctors, I was just trying things. I was just trying different approaches, different conversations. But really the punchline of what I was trying to communicate was, do you want to make more money? And if you want to make more money, then let's work together, because I can do that for you. And not every doctor does, and to be sure, not every doctor is willing to go through the process that it takes to get there, right? Because just like you or I know, like, you can't walk into your boss's office and say, hey, pay me more money, and you're going to get a 5-figure raise. Like, that's just not going to happen. Right. And so there's a strategy to getting a raise. And so when I first started talking to doctors, I don't think they understood what I do. And so I often had to lean on, it's like a sports agent, right? It's like a sports agent, Braun has an agent, Rich Carter negotiates his deals. That was my argument, was here's an analogy or something that you might be familiar with. And keeping in mind, not every doctor, I didn't want to be exclusionary, not every doctor is familiar with professional sports. And so having to find a way to communicate to you that I can add value for you. So really, it's quite simple. If we work together, I can make you more money. It's not going to cost you anything. And if I can't do that, I don't get paid, period. And so I kind of like refined my sales pitch, as it were, to just kind of the bare bones. And, there's 980,000 doctors in America. I don't need to get every doctor. If I don't get a doctor, if I'm not right fit for you, or you don't like my personality, that's okay, right? There's another doctor that would be willing to work with me. But I know early on, it really was a lot of evangelizing on what the challenge is. right? So what is the problem facing doctors? Why do they need an agent? And so I had to spend a lot of time my first year, Eric, doing education. So I was educating physicians in training everywhere from Yale to Duke, here University of Colorado, University of Michigan, UCLA, educating their physicians on how to be successful in your contract discussions, right? So look, you don't need me. We agree on that. You want me because I'm going to make you more than what you're making today, but you don't need me. And if I can help you better advocate for yourself through resources, through just basic knowledge of negotiation, I want to do that. And so my view of it is yeah, I have a twofold responsibility. One is to educate doctors, and two is to advocate for doctors. And then on the hospital side, the rejection was swift and severe. So for the hospitals, what I learned really quickly, so I had a pivot. So when I started the business, there were two things that I miscalculated. The first thing that I miscalculated was that, and I got this backwards, I thought that hospitals would be willing to pay any price and doctors would be really stingy about the money. And it's actually backwards. Hospitals are stingy about paying an outsider, and doctors will pay any price for the value. The other thing that I got wrong starting out is I spent a lot of time working for free. And so I thought that this would be so lucrative that I can wait to get those 5- and 6-figure checks on the back end, and I'll just be able to float myself, because that's such a low cost structure. I can just float myself between deals. And the reality of it is I couldn't do that. And so I put in place a retainer, so that way now we both have skin in the game. I do as well as the doctor. And so hospitals rejected me because I was asking for money. I said, hey, I'm going to bring you this doctor, and then you're going to pay me, this big check. And the fact is they balked at that. They just said, we're not going to do that. We've been getting doctors for ages without you, and we'll continue to get doctors for free without you.
Yeah. So when you look at the business model, I think when you touched on this, like you would think the hospitals would want to pay, right, for good doctors, but then they're in the business of making money, so they're tight with the budget. Explain the buy-in piece of it as far as like the doctors, because like you said, they didn't necessarily understand what you were trying to do and how you would benefit them, but it took a little while. You had to learn the business on their end to get that buy-in. So how was those conversations with the doctors, and when did you start to see they started to buy in on your service?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Xavier. I don't know that there was really this, climactic moment where they all of a sudden bought in. But what did happen is I would just get a call back and just do my best to close that individual doctor. And so really early on, and actually I'll be fully transparent, I hired a coach. And like I told you, I was down to my last $1,300 in December. So me hiring a coach was a very strategic business decision and investment of very limited funds that I had. And also I should say my business is self-funded. And the reason that I hired a coach is because I didn't want there to be any reason that this business doesn't succeed. And God forbid it's me, right? I don't want to get in my own way, being too timid or not assertive enough. And so I bring that up to say, and her name is Lanier. She's phenomenal. But the reason I bring that up is because she is the one who helped me step into my power and say, when these docs call, stop asking them what concerns they have and start telling them, hey, here's next steps in working together, right? Here's what you can look forward to. And so I started to refine my approach and refine my pitch and my communication, build more confidence. And the fact is, I knew this would work. I just didn't communicate it in a way that was effective, right? And so I started to, revisit and revamp my sales pitch, my marketing, and really focusing, Xavier, on the value add for doctors. You want to make more money? Are you frustrated with your contract? Are you being underpaid, frankly, for the work that you're doing because of your skin tone or your gender? And if the answer is yes, then let's fix that. And the reason I'm the person to help you fix that is because I spent 15 years working in hospitals on the other side of the table, and I have a law degree and a business degree, and I can help you level the playing field in those discussions so that way you don't leave discouraged, frustrated, or not getting what you deserve.
Yeah, I'm looking back on it. I'm noticing a trend as you're going through your journey. I'm noticing a progression. I'm getting pictures in my head. Being able to bounce back seemingly from defeat, undeniable persistence in what you believe in the initial stages of the idea, and then humility and the openness to be able to hire a coach even when you're down to your last few dollars. These are things that I'm seeing in this, and this is like the prototype when it comes to, for anyone listening out there, when it comes to starting a business and having a belief in an idea. This is it. This is what you're talking about. With your idea, so what I kind of related to, so you think back to before we had Facebook, before we had the iPhone, before we had Uber. Those are critical things of our lives we use every day, right? But in the origins, we didn't know. We didn't know it was possible. We didn't ask for it, but it was put in front of us, and we realized how critical it was. And I relate this to that for physicians. When you started to get the light bulb started going out, what were some of the recurring themes that you were hearing from physicians saying, I get this. I really do need this? What were some of those quotes? And I know you can remember right probably over the top of your head some of those things.
Yeah. I often hear, where have you been all my life? I hear that quite often. But the thing that I hear most often is I wish I would have had you for my last contract negotiation. Because what happens, and there's data to support this, Eric, but what happens is and my mom warned me about this. In my own ignorance, frankly, I didn't quite buy it. But when I started the business, my mom told me, you need to pay special attention to women physicians. And I said, well, why? And that was genuine my response. And she said, because they are not represented, and there's probably some disparities that you need to be aware of. And so I genuinely thought, okay, maybe there's some disparities for family medicine doctors in their first year or some general practice physicians. But once you get into these specializations, orthopedics, neurosurgery, those are going to disappear. But the fact of the matter is they don't. There's a disparity of 15 to 28% for women physicians. There's a disparity for physicians of color, whether you're a Black physician, Asian, Hispanic, there's disparities. And so when I think about my work, one as an educator, two as an advocate rather, it's not just to, tell doctors, here's how you be successful, but I'm very transparent about those inequities and those disparities and why it's so important for doctors to advocate for themselves. And so I do take a very special, I think, focus on women physicians and physicians of color, because that's my mom's demographic. And that means that she was in a conversation where she was paid less than her colleagues, ostensibly because of the color of her skin or her gender. And I just don't think that that's right. And so, I see my work as, partly it's a business and this is for profit. But at the same time, it's trying to remedy these disparities that are very, very public. Like there's if you Google today, disparities for physicians of color, disparities for women physicians, you can pull up a plethora of resources. It's not it's an open secret if it's anything. And so I see part of my mission, not exclusively helping those doctors, of course, but making sure that those doctors are aware of those inequities and are equipped to fight them.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think that speaks also to the disparity when it comes to pay, period, the pay gap between men and women, period, which makes what you do that much more important for women. Kudos to Mom for pointing that out early and getting you going in the right direction. Helping you out with that bit of knowledge, that bit of insider knowledge right there.
Yeah, she's a sharp one. She's definitely easily one of my heroes. I mean, she's grew up in the 60s. One of the cool things about about this journey. Eric, I think you'll appreciate this because you're picking up the themes here. So my mom, when I would talk to her about this experience of starting this business, and I'm gonna leave. It was a 6-figure job with a Fortune 500, and I said I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna quit because for a year I've been building this business at night, doing my day job, and I can't sustain both at this point. So I've got to kind of make the strategic decision to leave my W-2 job and move full bore into entrepreneurship. And my mom was wary. And she was not exactly what I would call supportive. And she's extremely supportive of me in every aspect of my life. And I couldn't quite reconcile the dissonance between, how supportive she always is, but with, how supportive she was with me starting my own business. And so I asked her about it, and we're super close, so we can speak openly. And I said, I just don't feel as though I've gotten the support from you that I would like through this process. And she said, I just feel like you're giving up on your day job too quickly, right? You need to keep that stability, do the safe thing, And I said, okay, I hear you. But then it clicked for me, Eric. It clicked for me. And I called her a few weeks later and I said, Mom, how did you get to medical school? She said, I was in a fully paid PhD program and I dropped out. And I said, what did your mom say when you dropped out? She said she was frustrated that I was dropping out of a fully funded program. I said, that's it. I said, you are doing to me exactly what your mom did to you. And I said, Mom, you followed your dream and you've got to trust that I'm following mine. And from that moment on, we've had this, kind of this alignment on what I'm doing. And now that I'm in a stable place, we're both excited about, what's in front of us. But at the same time, it was really challenging to reconcile, like you said, how important she is in my journey with the fact that I wasn't quite getting that support. And then, there's just this generational gap of, don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job. Don't leave that stability. And look, Eric and Xavier, I would never, ever advocate, anybody who's listening to this, I would never advocate quitting your day job to chase a pipe dream. Like, I was working full time in my W-2 job. And then when I shut that down, I was working to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock every night during the week. Like, I was preparing myself to be able to have the runway to start the business, not just from a professional perspective, but financially. I went through all my bills and made sure that I had reduced them to the bare minimum. I cut out any lifestyle stuff that I didn't need, like 6 streaming services, any bills that I could reduce the interest rate or the monthly payment. I tried to do that. And then for the next year, or the first year of the business, I just was bare bones. Like, you cannot just quit your job and hope it works out. You got to have a plan.
Ethan, what you just spoke to, man, you could do a whole TED talk on that piece about, and just as being serious, like you could do a whole TED talk on that piece about what you went back and asked your mom. And kudos to you for like taking her back to that and realizing kind of what she was putting on you, because I'm big on breaking generational curses and like breaking cycles, because it's in more than just in this area of like quitting your job and starting a business. It's in the way we carry our marriages. It's in the way that we carry our relationships. It's in the way that we handle our finances. All of that is built into that whole system of what's passed down. We tend to make the mistake and pass on to others, but also on the other end, they make the decision like you did to break the cycle. That's the key. And I don't know if you guys subscribe to Steve Harvey, but there's a 2-minute, 30-second clip. It's you go YouTube it and just type in Steve Harvey jump. And it's a nice little talk that he does after his Family Feud segment about the very thing you're talking about. Very powerful.
Interesting. Yeah, that's too kind of you, Eric. And, I am a firm believer in counseling and coaching and making sure that you, especially as Black men, right? I mean, our place in society is often dictated for us, right? Where we fit in, what places we can be in, and what our position in those places is often dictated to us. And so I see entrepreneurship as one way to take that power back, and say, I'm going to run my business the way that I want to run my business. And I'm going to have my hair the way that I want to have my hair. And I'm going to talk the way that I want to talk when I'm at work. I think it's important to recognize that there is power in having ownership of something, right? Mm-hmm. And so I applaud the work that you both are doing to amplify our voices.
Absolutely. Think about go ahead, X.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that, and like you said, we have to dictate our own paths and amplify our voices, and in the process of doing that, not forget those that follow us are looking up to us, and make sure we are shining examples for them. As they do the same thing, as Eric says, breaking that generational gap or setting up the next generation to be leaders for the generation following them. And like you said, breaking that generation gap, that's where it all starts. So absolutely, man. Thanks for saying that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man, you're spot on. I'm sorry, Eric. I was talking with, I volunteer with Denver Public Schools, and yesterday, so I have a senior in high school who I mentor. We meet every other week and we talk every week. We were on the phone yesterday, and this goes back to something Eric said a few minutes ago. And he asked me, he said, so we're doing this, like, we're putting this presentation for his final readout to the group. And it's specifically for Black students within this school. So it's called a Black Affinity Group. And so he said to me, he's like, what would you say is the advice that you would give someone like me as I take this next step in my life? And I said, no matter what, you have got to believe in yourself and bet on yourself and double down, right? I think it was, there's some player from the Miami Heat. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he said, Mr. Bet on myself and double down, right? And that means a lot to me. Like I relate to that, right? Because I think it's so important for us to have that belief in ourselves, because unfortunately, we don't always have that network of cronies who are gonna, oh, hey, you want to come over here? I got a job for you. Like, other cultures do a really good job of helping, to Xavier's point, helping those that come behind. And I think we can do a better job, right? And so I think part of that comes with ownership, right? Being able to say, it's mine and I'm going to dictate who comes in here. And I'm not going to exclude the people that look a certain way through these systems that are exclusionary, right? And so, look, you don't have to own your own business. You can own whatever, own your voice, right? As the two of you do. But I think part of it is like to Xavier's point, like, we have got to take back the narrative of how we're perceived in society and in our spaces. And I just don't feel like we have always had the autonomy in that.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the start of it is being able to see that it's possible, right? For someone to be able to go to your website and see your picture there, or Google your name and hear your story about, and even listen to this podcast, being able to hear your journey gives that hope, where we didn't have that before, where people are like, oh, man, I don't see, you go to these like startup accelerators or these business accelerators and you don't see people that look like you. It's kind of defeating. But the more we start to see faces like yours pop up, it's like, okay, this is possible. At least I have someone I could possibly reach out to, and they can share the journey, the ups and downs, and how you get